in this country, for us, we haven't necessarily talked a lot. I mean, we talked, I think the only time we really talked about like experiencing, the white America was when you guys went to USC. And you kind of noticed it like, oh, shoot, there's a lot of like white people here and they're all like in cliques and I feel kind of left out. But besides that, we had never talked about it. Mostly because I don't think we had experienced it. I don't think we had ever actually lived through it because we're in our bubble. We've been in our little bubble in our community where everyone's Latino, everyone's a POC. There's, we have all of our culture, all of our community near us. So personally, I've been lucky enough to have never felt out of place or not accepted because everywhere I went, I would see people like me and people spoke my language and it was fine. And so, this past about 2 weeks ago, that all kind of changed. And I think for the first time, we kind of all experienced, I feel like what like the real side of this country is and what it means to be outside of our bubble. So for context, we were invited to speak at the Aspen Ideas Festival, which is a festival that takes place in Aspen, and it's basically a bunch of really smart people that speak on panels, and there's a lot of panels about a wide variety of topics, all presenting a unique idea or talking about an interesting subject, and they were nice enough to invite us because...
And it's like, they have a lot of money. This is for context that they have the means to do a lot, and the wealthiest of the wealth are there.
Yeah, it's a pretty, the people at the festival are pretty well off for the most part. I mean, tickets are like $5,000, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a festival basically all just about promoting ideas, and I had never heard about it beforehand, but they invited us to come and speak and do a panel. Kayla and I did a panel on Gen Z and mental health, and I had no clue what to expect. But yeah, I mean, I had no clue what to expect, really. Like, I didn't know how it was going to be. I just knew it probably was going to be a lot of really smart people there, and the audience was definitely, different from anything I had been to before. And so we get there, and all five of us went this time. All five of us went, and we went to Aspen, which is in Colorado. And you know what's so weird? Aspen is the weirdest town that I have ever been to. I feel like from the moment we got there, I mean, it's beautiful. Like, Colorado and Aspen is really, really pretty. Everything was so green, and the meadows and the sunlight. It was so pretty.
Mountains. Hills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a ski resort town, so it was very like wealthy, a lot of houses. It was really pretty.
Yeah, it was so pretty, but it was really empty. It felt really empty.
Yeah.
It felt like an abandoned town that like it was not real. Like, all these were playhouses. Like, who's actually living here? And I talked to a bunch of locals, and they all said the same thing. Like, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the town used to be really great. There was a community. There was actually people out. And over time, they basically just sold the town to the highest bidder, and the towns kind of all the people went away to cheaper towns because it just got way too expensive. Like, the average price of a home there is $12 million. So it's by no means cheap. It's extremely expensive to live there. 12 million is the average. If you want to live on the hills, it's like 50 million for a home. So
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, these are like their third homes. They're not living there. They're the vacation homes they live in for like 2 weeks during December, and that's about it.
yeah, a lot of these people were like, yeah, this is like their third home out here. Like, they're not even just living here. So it was like, wow. So at first it was, Isaac, Mark, and I who went, and it was really interesting. We were just like, wow, we were so amazed. We were super excited to be there. And for the opening session, they asked me to present a big idea, which was just something that I felt passionate about and that I thought was important. And so I presented on the first day in the opening session with a bunch of people, and it was scary. It was very scary. But it was a great audience. I mean, I thought I presented a new perspective, and people seemed to like it. Afterwards, they came up to me and told me they really liked the idea, which was just like dedicating more physical spaces to our youth in order to help solve the mental health crisis that young people are facing. So point is, we got to the festival. Everything's fine. Our panel's on Sunday, and we got there on Saturday. And so the next day, okay. So the day we get there,
What happened?
the day we get there, we're in Aspen, and we go to our hotel because they changed it. So originally, we were gonna be at the resort in Aspen, right? This 4-star, 5-star hotel that's super pretty with a beautiful campus, which is where the festival was taking place. And each speaker gets a +1. We all get a +1, and so Thomas had Kayla, I had Isaac, but Mark was left. So who was going to be his +1? So I asked for the people that were organizing this, and they invited me. I asked them, "Can you give me a +1? Right? Can you give me an extra +1 so Mark could get a festival pass?" And they told me that they couldn't do that because each speaker only gets a +1, and they can't really accommodate for anything else. But they said we can give you a session pass. Yeah, right, a day pass so you can go to your host's session. So we said okay, and they said also since he doesn't have a full pass, he won't be able to be in the resort because he'll have restrictions because they're only allowing attendees of the festival there. So we're gonna move you to a different hotel. So we get to Aspen, we get to our hotel, and we realize we are staying in this 3-star hotel that smells like shit on the outside. We found ants on the bed. There were stains on the towels. It felt dirty. There was no natural sunlight. It felt like we were in a fucking box. Trapped. The AC didn't work either.
Because it wasn't plugged in.
I honestly didn't think our hotel room was that bad, but in comparison to where all the other panelists and everyone else, every single other person at the event was staying at, compared to that, we were staying in a not so nice place. But the place itself was nice.
Wait, and you mentioned why they moved us.
Yeah, so that's why they moved us. And I mean, you said the place itself wasn't that bad, but are we just used to accepting a little less? There were ants on the bed. You're paying, if you pay for a hotel. Oh,
It was our room. I think sorry, anything just livable, we're fine with. It was still livable. We had a place to sleep. It wasn't so bad where we had to leave the room. So we just basically settled for it, even though everyone else got something a lot better.
right?
I just don't want to give so much shit to the hotel when the hotel. I would stay there again if we had to. It's just that we just weren't receiving the same treatment as all the other people.
I think we just needed to understand the occasion. We weren't just visiting and looking for a decently priced hotel. We were invited as speakers, invited by these wealthy people, and that was the best they could do for us.
And so look, not to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
We get to the hotel. It's it's a weird hotel. It's odd. But we got there, and I was kind of complaining because I was really looking forward to staying at the resort because it was beautiful. I mean, it was in a beautiful campus. I was so excited. I thought it was going to be great. And so when we got to the hotel, I was really disappointed because I was like, oh my God, I'm not even going to enjoy staying in here. It didn't feel nice. It felt dirtier than my home. And if a hotel room feels dirtier than your home, what is going on, right? What the fuck is going on? But, we were okay, maybe we should be thankful. We should be appreciative, stop complaining. I gotta just, it's better than nothing. So I'm okay, stop. And so we do that. We go to the festival, and at this point, everyone's here. Everyone arrived. Thomas and Kayla got back from France. They're at the hotel. They have their own room. And for the rest of the trip, everything went fine. We did our panel. It went great. The audience loved it. We got to talk about a lot of stuff on the panel. They asked us what was weird about the panel is the audience was great. They had great questions, and at one point they asked us, an episode that was super impactful was one we did where it was growing up poor. Why did you guys decide to do that? And obviously, if you guys listened to that episode, we talked about growing up poor and struggling financially, and how to this day we're still struggling financially to pay rent or groceries. And we talked about it because we don't have any shame in it, and we think it's important. And everybody in the audience loved it. They all clapped, whatever. So we're they loved the panel. Everyone said it was great. Apparently a lot of people were talking about the panel afterwards. They said it was really great. It was really impactful. A lot of people enjoyed it. So that made us super happy, and people really liked it, and people really liked us. So we were oh my God, that's amazing. I'm glad we did well. So the rest of the trip, I was staying 2 days extra basically, and so I thought they were going to leave on the day like 2 days before me, and so we were just relaxing and like we played tennis and it was really great. We were eating, and I met a lot of really cool people at the event. I mean, everybody like was for the most part really friendly. They all kind of said hi, introduced themselves, gave you kind words if they saw you. And the festival had a lot of really good food, which was all free, and we got breakfast and lunch and all of that. And it was so funny because even that first day that we got to the hotel, it was Isaac, Mark and I, and we get to the hotel and, you know, Mark and I are hungry and Isaac's hungry, and we go get food, and then we realize there's, for one, no casual food. Everything is super nice restaurants, like three money signs on Google and Yelp and shit. So we're like, okay, let's just go to a grocery store because we did not want to spend like $20 for just a simple like bowl, a dish of fucking like rice and chicken. Probably like 30 with tax and tip. And so we just get frozen food. So that first day we didn't have any money. We didn't want to spend money. So we just ate like chimichangas and fucking like Coke. Taquitos, frozen food, right? In our microwave. And we're like, oh my God.
Yeah, like the prices were really inflated, even at the supermarket. Like for like a can of sauce was like 20 bucks, and it was just, everything was too expensive. So we just got frozen food and settled with that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was like fine. I was like, okay, it's not too bad. I'm not like complaining. Like it's okay. Like I enjoyed it. So that happened, and the rest of the week we really just played tennis, like relaxed, walked around, went to a couple sessions, ate, talked, whatever. And so now it's like halfway through the week because I stayed there like 6 days, and it was like on day 3, and it was time for Thomas, Kayla, Mark, and Isaac to go home. So they go to the airport. And their flight's overbooked, so they can't leave. So, you know, they volunteer to stay back, and Mark's the only one that left. Isaac, Kayla, and Thomas stayed. You know, the airline gave them their hotel, their flight credit, and so they stayed an extra day. And that same day, this dude that I had met at like one of these hot dog stands they had was like, oh, hey, aren't you like the dude from Teenager Therapy? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, I always see you guys on TikTok. And I was like, oh my God, cool. Yeah, thank you. And then later that day, he DM'd me on Instagram, and I was like, hey, my grandma owns my aunt owns a restaurant here in Aspen, and she would love to just host you guys for a dinner at her house. She just wants to say hi and talk to you guys about, you know, being young and all that. And I had two options because I had a dinner that day, like an event dinner with, like, you know, it was hosted by like NBC Universal, and they were doing panels on Gen Z and stuff, and they had invited me, and so I was like, oh, I don't know which one to go to, but I decided to go to her house with everyone, and we all decided to go, and we're like, okay, let's go. We didn't know what to expect. And so we got to her house, and I mean, it was her name was Mawa, and it was her nephew, and it was her nephew's friend who were there. And we just kind of had we just started talking and had a lot of conversations about what we do, what they do, and, you know, what it's like living in Aspen and being surrounded by so much wealth. And I'm not sure how, but eventually we started talking about race and, you know, do we feel tokenized? Do we feel discriminated? How do we feel knowing, you know, do we feel used? And these were really insightful questions because I don't think none of us had really given it any thought. We kind of had just gone with the flow, and, you know, we started saying, well, personally, I didn't feel tokenized at the event because they actually handed us the mic and we actually had a panel on the stage. And so I felt like if they had only invited us and like left us there to do our own thing, and just so they could, you know, if they take pictures, we're in the background like, oh wow, there's like so diverse, I would have felt tokenized then. But the fact that they actually gave us a platform and allowed us to speak is what made me realize, you know, I don't feel tokenized. I thought they actually did include us, and that was really nice. However, I feel like the more that we talked and, you know, we started telling her about our situation, we're like, yeah, so they moved us from the hotel because they didn't want to give Mark an extra festival pass because each speaker could only get one. And so they moved us from the resort to this, like, you know, this ugly hotel that, like, we didn't know who else was staying there. The shuttles didn't run there because there were shuttles, and we had to bike and walk everywhere because, you know, no one took us there. And we had to pay for our own taxis and transportation. And, you know, the first day we like ate frozen food because we didn't have any meals. And yeah, and, you know, we were saying this so casually, like we didn't really think there was anything wrong. It was just kind of normal for us. Like, yeah, we have to pay, right? Like, it's, you know. And that's when she, you know, got really mad for us. She was like, oh my God, like, no, you guys should be so angry right now. Like, these people have money. You guys are you're paying for basic necessities. They're the ones that invited you to speak. You come and share, your wisdom, your clout with them, and educate these older folks that are a lot wealthier than us. And they have you on a panel speaking about how poor you are, and like these people, like all, she was like, all these white people, all these white folks really, they say a lot, but they don't do a lot. You shouldn't just believe what they say, because they'll be telling you how amazing you are, how you're incredible, and how you're so well accomplished. But then they won't actually do anything to support you. They'll just go out and like fund the other white man that's also there. And, they'll actually do stuff to help him. To you, they'll probably just tell you good things and hope that you're happy with it. And you guys shouldn't be. And you guys shouldn't just be thankful. You shouldn't just, be happy with the crumbs that are there. Just because they gave you a hotel and they paid for your flight, that shouldn't be enough. You should be requesting more. You should be requesting to fly business or fly first class, or, have your food paid for, your transportation, because it's unacceptable that they're making you pay for even the basic necessities when you're the one that took the time to come to the festival, travel all the way here, just to be treated like that. Like, it's absolutely not acceptable. It's discriminatory, especially when you think about all these other speakers that are staying there. And, perhaps you have like other people that are wealthier who could buy a pass for their staff and like assistants, or they've given one, whatever it might be. So, you guys should be mad. And I think that was kind of, the more she talked, the more we realized like what was happening to us that we hadn't even realized before.
Yeah, I think, at least for me, I didn't give it that much thought about being tokenized or being like taken advantage of. Because I was just excited in the first place that like, oh, they chose us to like go over there. They're flying us out. Like, this is the first time that we've all been like how do you say it? Flown out to places. And so that alone was just like really exciting. And we didn't think, or I know I didn't think about like, oh, I'm not first class, or like I'm not business. It was more just like, okay, well, I mean, they're paying for the flight. That's like really like a lot already. But then when she was saying everything, it did put everything into perspective. And especially, I think the part that got me angry, like the most angry, was when she like pointed out that like we had talked about growing up poor on the panel, and then it was just, the audience was, majority like white people. Of course, they have money. And it's just so funny that like I talk about it and it doesn't do anything besides just like go one ear and out the other. It's like they're not gonna do anything to help me. It's like, it's more just like me up there and they're just like speculating. It's just like, I don't know. That part really annoyed me and it frustrated me. But of course everything else was just like added on to it. So.
Yeah, because when they did ask Kayla about like her experience growing up poor, it didn't add to the conversation at all. They didn't talk about it after she answered. It was just
nobody came up to be like, hey, let me pay for your tuition. Like, let me pay for your room and board.
Like, the interviewer just asked. Kayla told her experience, and then boom. It was very unnecessary, to say the least. And I did feel tokenized compared to like everybody else. Because in my experience, with the other panels for like New York and France, I didn't exactly feel like I was being used. While in Aspen, it did feel very uncomfortable for me to be there. Like as soon as Mawa was talking about like the treatment we were like receiving and how it wasn't okay, I understood it immediately because I didn't understand why we had to pay for our own flights. Mark's flight wasn't covered. Isaac's flight wasn't covered.
Our checked bags weren't covered.
Yeah. My flight home wasn't covered. Gal had to pay for that. And so, I was already pretty frustrated. Now after knowing the hotel situation compared to everybody else's, I was very frustrated. And I didn't understand why they weren't paying us for food either. So that was very frustrating.
Yeah, and I mean, turns out later it was like revealed that they forgot to tell us about like the meal comp, or like it had got like lost in translation.
Oh my god, yeah, that's a
and so I think
thing.
that was just really frustrating because it's like, how do you forget to tell the people that you're flying out that, like, hey, we're paying for your meals and stuff. It's that part was just unprofessional. It was unprofessional.
It's shady because that's something you always give your clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I doubt they would forget to tell someone of like higher status that. So it's just kind of shocking.
I mean, I don't think they forgot to tell our other panelists that either.
I have no clue. I mean, I don't necessarily want to make too many assumptions and just assume like that's the worst of their intention. But also,
Why are you protecting it?
that's the thing, right? Like it's so, especially as a POC, you feel so gaslighted when you're like, am I fucking reading into this too much, or is there genuine, malice behind it? And it's honestly hard to know. And I'm still trying to figure out how you deal with that, because I'm like, okay, who fucking knows? Look, I'll give more context to that whole meal thing. So, yeah. So I think what Mao, the conversation with Mao, she was really, she's a black woman living in Aspen. She has a restaurant. She's a chef, and she was also telling us about her experience that, people always say she's the best like black chef in Aspen and have to include her race, and they say how amazing she is, but they'll go fund the other white restaurants in Aspen and not her. And, it's very little support. She's on the outskirts. And, a lot of mistreatment. And I think she really put everything in perspective. And she also like was making sure to tell me like, why didn't you ask for more? Like, you also should have asked for this. You should have communicated it. Like, I don't want you to do that ever again. Like, learn to say no. Don't take just crumbs for, don't take the crumbs and be thankful for it. Ask for more every time. And so because of that, I did realize, I could have done a better job asking for more. For one, I didn't necessarily communicate very well. And so I am not purely just blaming the festival for the mistreatment, because part of it is just me. Like, why didn't I ask for more? I'll get more into this, but for now, yeah, I should have asked for more. And so I don't necessarily, I'm sure if I would have said like, hey, will food and this be covered, they probably would have said like, yes, of course. And also like for the flights for like Mark, Isaac, and Thomas, yeah, like we had to pay for that out of our own pocket. And it was one of those things that to me, it was like, okay, like that's fair. But also Mao was telling us like, but you guys come as a group. Like
Exactly.
like if you're gonna have one of them, have like everyone, or else you say no. Like if everybody wants to go, then everyone should deserve to go, because everyone has contributed to the success of this, and so everyone deserves a chance to have the same opportunities. And that like also did make me realize, because other times like I would be too scared to request for more, or like not pay it ourselves. Got to be like, oh, it's already a lot of money, and they're already like covering for two of us, and I know like five flights is a lot of money, and I don't want them to feel bad, because I still have that mentality that everyone's fucking poor, and like companies, institutes, whatever, like organizations are poor, and like $300 will hurt them like more than it will hurt us or so. And that's my fault for having that mentality as a POC. And I'm sure if you're like, if you're a minority watching this, you probably have felt the same way, especially if you grew up, in poverty or lower class. You probably also have the mentality of like, is everyone also running out of money? Like companies are also struggling. Like you have to be considerate, because it's incomprehensible that people can just have money, just disposable income to just buy stuff. Like that is such a foreign concept that it's weird. It's weird to think about. And so, yeah, we didn't know our meals were covered. We didn't know our transportation were covered. So we've just been paying for everything. And we left that conversation, I think, feeling really angry. We left it feeling really angry, and we were able to get in touch with some of the people at the Institute. And there was some people that were able to help us and kind of be like, you know what, let me tell someone that I know about your experience. And so that same day, they sent out some text that reached the people at the actual Institute and, at the resort and stuff. And they were able to tell the people at the Institute, like, what's going on, like who, they kind of just stood up for us and really said what was happening, and so they said, okay, like people got involved basically, and they started kind of like actually speaking up about it for us, which I thought was really it felt really nice. And another thing I forgot to mention that like really meant a lot is towards the end of our conversation, Mawa, who's obviously a chef in Aspen, she in the beginning we were talking about the restaurant business and talking to her about what it's like, and she was telling us that profit margins are really tough, and having a restaurant, especially in Aspen, is a hard business. Like, it's the profit margins are so thin, and she honestly wouldn't do it again because it's just such a hard way to make a living, being a chef and having a restaurant. And even after saying that and telling us and talking about her experience, struggling also sometimes to like even keep up, at the end of the conversation, we were saying bye, and she handed each of us an envelope. And she said, like, this is for you guys, just to take care of yourself. And like inside that envelope was $500 for each of us. And in that moment, it was just, I didn't know what to say. Like, I kid and I just started crying.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't say any words because I like even just
It meant
thinking
a-
about
yeah, I'm like,
even
any-
just